I got a joke for you. What do you call somebody that hangs around with musicians? Oh, no, not that one, surely. All right, a bloody drummer, all right? Now I've said it.
Hello, world. This is Chris Abalo's podcast experiment, and I am Chris Abalo. Welcome back to the show. I hope it's back to the show anyway. I hope you've been listening to the show. I'm very intent on getting the plugs done up front because, in part, because of the material we'll be covering today. But I look up and all of a sudden the show's over. So I thought, you know what? I should probably just let you know where you can find the show if you just stumbled upon the show. You can subscribe to Chris Abalo's podcast experiment on iTunes and also on the Stitcher app if you have that on your smartphone or various other mobile devices. And always, you can tune in live, 10 p.m. Pacific time every Monday at skidrowstudios.com and listen live and check out the, you can also check out the live video feed too, which if you're checking out the live video feed now, boy, are you getting ripped off because I'm the only one here. So there's nothing visually stunning for you to check out. And I doubt you find me visually stunning. And if you do, then I'd recommend a good optometrist. But it's funny how over the last few weeks since I've been doing the live broadcast that we've actually, it started out with me plus 3 people. Second live show, me plus 2 people. Last week, me and 1 person. This week, just me in the studio, but my guest will be on the phone. So people aren't disappearing. People are actually checking out the show. And I'm glad that everybody's checking out the show. I've gotten a really good response. And all the more reason I want to tell you where to find the show if you're coming to it down the line. So I started off with a little bit of a drummer joke up front because I resisted the urge to do a Groundhog Day joke because it's Groundhog Day. And might have been a little obvious, but doesn't matter. I didn't go with the Groundhog Day joke. Although, I still don't understand why Groundhog Day is a thing. Because apparently, I was reading an article today, the groundhog seeing or not seeing a shadow is only accurate 28% of the time over the last several hundred years, or however long they've been doing it. I didn't read the article very closely. But we put an awful lot of stock into this glorified gopher who is supposed to predict whether or not we're going to get 6 more weeks of winter. So it's kind of a funny tradition, but there you have it. Having said that, I'm going to get a bunch of angry tweets tomorrow, so you can send them. Chris, why are you making fun of Punxsutawney Phil? I'm not. I swear I'm not. But, yeah, you can follow me at Chris Abalo, by the way, and Chris Sells Out on Instagram. And follow the show to finish the plugging before I got off my little Groundhog Day tangent. You can find the show on Facebook. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know you like the show. Give the show a 5-star rating on iTunes as well when you subscribe. And follow the show at Cape Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And you will fulfill all your Cape needs and podcasting needs. Funnily enough, today is not only Groundhog Day, I can't say this without laughing, it's National Frozen Yogurt Day, which, you know, it's funny. I wrote about this in September, how I wonder how other countries view us, where they think we celebrate a hell of a lot of food days here, where it's coffee day or sugar cookie day, all sorts of things. And I can't help but think everybody just looks at us as just American fat asses. Like they're celebrating pastries and celebrating frozen yogurt, which everybody's putting out, all the chains, because as we know, self-serve frozen yogurt places are just as common as Starbucks now. They're everywhere. And a lot of them had a promotion for, free yogurt today, come in from 4 to 5. Well, first of all, a lot of us work for a living, so we can't roll in at 4 to 5. Second of all, if you're giving away free yogurt, no one's going to get in an hour. You're lucky if you get in tonight if someone's giving away yogurt. And it's probably like free 3 ounces, like one of those little paper kind of shot glasses of yogurt. and just to sample it. And then the rest is, $4.98 a pound. So, there you go. National Frozen Yogurt Day. So, today, in a few minutes, I will be talking to author and musician Bobby Borg, who wrote the recent best-selling book, Music Marketing for the DIY Musician, creating and executing a plan of attack on a low budget. And the whole DIY concept is important to me because even the show is very DIY, even though being done in a studio and there are people working the controls and twiddling the knobs and various bits and pieces. They're also touching the studio gear as well. But while this is done with assistance, it's not done with the intention of waiting for sponsors, or neither was The Only Podcast That Matters, which we did for 4 years without sponsors or without any, let's say, assistance. So I like the whole do-it-yourself concept. And Bobby Borg, I met, it was, holy Christ, it's almost 9 years ago now that I moved to Los Angeles. So it was probably about 8 years ago. I took 2 of his music business classes at Musicians Institute, which were incredible. And he's a guy who has actually worked as a musician and has learned that the music business has 2 parts to it. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't learn that until they're informed about the fine prints in their contract, or they don't make it to even step 2 because, unfortunately, they may have signed a bad deal. They didn't know how to balance things where whatever money they were putting out was actually coming back to them plus a profit. So it's, and now with so much of music having the capacity to be independent, then it's important that you know your stuff, because if you want to take control of your career, it's very, very important that you go about it with strategy as opposed to just winging it. So we're going to be talking to Bobby Borg in a moment. So we're going to take a quick break. And after a brief interlude, we'll be on the phone talking to Bobby Borg about DIY music marketing right after this. All right. Turn your volume back up. We are back. And I should have mentioned up front that the little rhythm you heard, the intro music, was Dead Man Fall, song called Bang Your Drum, which I thought was appropriate because Bobby Borg has been banging his drum for over 20 years and continues to bang the drum for being self-sufficient with musicians and with being proactive about being smart with your music career. So, everybody, welcome Bobby Borg. Bobby, can you hear me?
That was probably one of the best segues I've heard in a long time.
Not bad. For my fourth broadcast from a legit radio studio, then good. I'm very, very happy to hear that.
I love that. That was great, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, I appreciate it. Glad we were able to work this out, man. So I've been digging through the book. Haven't gotten 100% through it because it's very dense with information. But the great thing is it's straight talk. It's conversational. It's not actually, it isn't buried under jargon, which, I've read some business and marketing books, of course, and I have no doubt you've read a ton, and that probably informed the way you wrote it, where you kept it very casual and down to earth. So it's not buried under jargon, but there's a lot to absorb.
Marketing is a very detailed subject, and actually a lot of people, when they think about marketing, they think about promotion, setting up a Facebook page and throwing out a couple tweets, and now you're marketing. There's a whole philosophical and, element and psychological element to marketing. So, it is a difficult and detailed subject, but thank you very much for saying that, because I did purposely try to tone down all of the business jargon and acronym hell, as I call it, that exists in a lot of marketing and business books. Really try to kind of simplify the language and talk to people as though, you're just kind of talking one-on-one on the street.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that the average, no slight against musicians, of course, but the average musician can actually read it and understand what's being said without. It's funny you mentioned the acronym thing because, it's always, remember, your plan is to grab, give, receive, access, and, or whatever. And
right, exactly.
You find a lot of that where it's like, wait a minute, I'm forgetting to grab. Whereas this is actually a plan, not hard and fast rules, but just a plan which, frankly, just with the several chapters I've read, it seems like it could be, it's obviously geared toward music, but it seems like it could be applicable to any business, any independent do-it-yourself operation, because the information is very much about just marketing in general, even though it gets more and more specific to music as it goes along. I just think as a book on marketing and on business, I think it's incredible.
Yeah, it is for really anything. It's essentially what the book is it's, called Music Marketing for the DIY Musician. And essentially what it is essentially a step-by-step guide to not only understanding, the concepts of marketing, but also a book that enables you to kind of put together your own marketing plan of attack, customized for your needs. And, so, with that said, it could be used for a pizza place. It could be used for a flower shop. It could be used for a studio. It could be used for a band, a solo artist, someone creating a beat studio, someone selling, instruments in a music shop. It could really be for anything. It is the essence of marketing, 101, except obviously geared with all of the examples towards the music business, and specifically towards the DIY musician on a low or no budget. So, we're not talking about putting up billboards on Sunset Boulevard for $75,000. This is stuff that you could do right now. So it's very practical.
It is, yeah. That, like I said, very applicable to anybody who's interested, which is what basically the way, since now there's just to somewhat pat myself on the back, now that there's been some interest in the show and people asking me what's coming up next week. And when I mentioned the book, to describe it to people, I said, basically, if you're doing business at all, if you're doing music, because I have gaggles of musician friends, but I said, regardless, if you're doing anything independently, when it comes to putting yourself out there and being smart about it and not going broke with your endeavor, basically, people can't afford to not know what Bobby Borg knows, which is the most important message I could say about this book, because it's real world, it's straight talk, and like I said, that's one of the things I love about it. But what brought you to all of this as far as digging in and really learning marketing? Certainly you started as a musician, also from New Jersey, so always nice to have some class on the show. And
all right.
yeah. And What got you to the point where it became about taking your experience and using it to serve others?
Well, yeah, thanks for that question. So what got me started into this whole concept of marketing? And it also is going to answer a lot of other questions, I think, too. So let's just go ahead and get right into that. Essentially, you have to be very, very proactive as a musician, really, to get to the next step of your career. I mean, just when I first started out and I was in original bands on a local level, you really have to get out there and you need to book your own gigs. And, of course, you need to promote your own gigs. And the more you promote your own gigs, the better gigs you get and the better nights you get. And, and the more interesting you are on stage, and the way you brand yourself is going to attract more fans, et cetera. So there was always sort of a built-in understanding that you kind of have to hustle and roll up your sleeves and really be smart about this. And perhaps that came from the fact that my father was a successful business person, also / artist. So maybe I inherited some of that sort of intuitively, or, and kind of just adapted that stuff without maybe even realizing what I was doing at first. I was a student at Berklee College of Music, so I had to take a lot of business classes. So I was around a lot of smart people and around a lot of creative people at the same time. And, what I started to notice is that a lot of creative people, are brilliant, right brain, can compose beautiful music. But then when it came to returning a phone call on time, a lot of times, people didn't really have it together. So I knew there was a need for information out there that was conveyed in a way that was going to be easy to understand and easy to absorb. Moving on, I get signed to Atlantic Records. And a lot of times people think when you get signed to Atlantic Records, when you get signed to a major, your ship has now arrived and you're going to sit back and everybody's going to do stuff for you and press all the magic buttons and all these wonderful things are going to happen. Wrong.
Yeah.
Literally, I became more of a business person and more of a marketer when I was signed to Atlantic. I could tell two stories without maybe mentioning names, but nonetheless, I used to get on a train from Jersey to New York City and literally sit on the floor with the interns and lick envelopes and stuff them with, posters, sending them out to our fans saying, vote for us on MTV. Now this is a guy that's signed to Atlantic Records, managed by Q Crime Management that handles Metallica, writing songs with Desmond Child that wrote hits for Aerosmith and Kiss, and produced by some of the world's biggest, producers. So I realized at that point, man, in this business, especially, and that was back then. Now, in the age we are, where you have all these tools, we call them DIY tools. Thanks to the digital era, now people are expected to do all this stuff themselves, so they really have no choice. So this was a perfect time for me to really throw all these ideas into a book that enabled people to really kind of think about what they were doing from a logical, systematic approach. And just not sort of haphazardly just sort of go through their career and hope that they're going to be successful. Now they can actually strategize their careers and potentially, set the course maybe so that they can hit their mark.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of the things you tackle early in the book is creating a vision and setting up, I don't remember the exact wording you use, but basically a mission statement. You need to know what you're about going in because people, I guess in a perfect world, want to think that it's all going to work out, but winging it doesn't work. You can't build a career in anything on just winging it and kind of floating along and expecting things are going to pan out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Hope is not a strategy.
No.
If I can repeat that again, hope is not a strategy. Now, when you're young, maybe if you're in your room, you're living in your bubble, you just write a bunch of stuff, and you kind of have that, chest pounding, I am an artist, and I just do what I do, and if people like my stuff, they'll buy it, and, and that lasts, for as long as you're living at home, as soon as you kind of get out and you have bills and you have to kind of support yourself, and as soon as you start to get a little bit into, you're above your mid-20s, you might even start hitting close to your 30s, you don't have time to play games anymore. You just kind of wing it and hope things work out.
Yeah.
You really kind of have to strategize and ask yourself, what are we doing? Now, just to be clear real quick, that doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form compromising any integrity whatsoever.
Right.
I call it adjusting your integrity, adjusting your vision, adjusting your what you want out of your career and out of your life to make it work, to make it see the light of day. Otherwise, potentially it could just be a band, in a drawer, so to speak, that never gets seen.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who've never left the garage who claim to have integrity, but meanwhile, they're in somebody else's garage, and instead of doing laundry, they're buying strings or whatever. So, yeah, there's a certain point where you need to make what you're doing sustainable for you, especially if you want to make a living doing it, because that's the part everybody seems to. And I went to and graduated from Musicians Institute, and a lot of people, where you teach, by the way, and a lot of people forget that it's called the music business, and business is probably disproportionately more than half, but is half of that statement. And everybody just thinks it's about the music, and as long as the music's good, then that's really what's going to do it. And that probably comes from an idealist, dare I say, naive point of view, where people assume, well, if it's good, then that's what's going to matter. And we've probably all been in that headspace. But ultimately, yeah, being informed on the business side of it and being able to go in with a plan, with a strategy, that makes all the difference, frankly.
Absolutely. And again, to reiterate and really, really impose this on your listeners, it is not a question in any way, shape, or form of again, I have to say this again, just to be sure everyone gets it.
Turn up your volume, kids.
Your integrity. I'm sorry, what's that?
Oh, I was just telling everybody, turn up their volume and absorb it.
Okay, so
That's
you
all.
can hear me okay, right?
Oh, I can hear you just fine. Yeah, I'm just want to emphasize, because we want to pound that into everybody. The message here at this minute marker in the show is you do not need to compromise your integrity. You can make a living doing it and be smart about it without selling your soul.
Absolutely. No, we're definitely not talking about that in any way, shape, or form. Just really kind of think about how, you're unique in the marketplace. Think about how you're unique in regards to other groups that are out there. Really kind of consider whether or not you're making a strong statement, that can really touch, a certain group of people, so that they look at you as like their leader and they become your passionate follower. I mean?
Yeah. Fans.
It doesn't take much to really kind of think about this stuff, but you definitely have to kind of be in tune to what it is you're doing.
Definitely. Now, let me ask you, what is the question you get asked most often from students? Someone who's going in cold, who is taking a music business course and kind of waking up to the reality that there's information out there that they don't know, and they don't know how much they don't know. What's the question you're most commonly asked by students?
Well, after like a lecture, or after like a discussion, or after, an interview like this, it usually starts with, yeah, but, so how do I get a deal?
Wait a minute. You didn't tell me where the magic button is.
At first, they tend to ignore. Maybe it just goes over their head. And I understand. It takes a while really to kind of, understand that, it is a business. That's why it's called the music business, as you pointed out eloquently earlier. But that's usually what it starts out with. Yeah, so how do I get to the next level of my career? So then I have to go back and I have to sort of reiterate what I call the 10 steps of the marketing process. And at some point, I could probably whiz through those 10 steps if you wanted me to. So just let me know when you're ready for that. But
absolutely,
this way,
please.
This way your listeners will get a little bit more of an idea. You ready? You want to start?
Yeah, go for it. I don't want to give the book away on my own, so you can go over it and give us the bird's eye view.
Simply, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, give us the bird's eye view of the book. Yeah, you can absolutely give the 10 steps. I don't want to go too deep into anything because I want people to buy the book because it's incredibly valuable to everybody. So please, you have the mic.
They should. Totally. This is stuff that you study and you read over and again, you practice. So certainly, having the book in your library would be very, very valuable. And everybody out there listening, it should definitely grab a copy. You could do that through my website, or you can do that at Amazon. Just to kind of give you an idea where to start, you guys, think about, first of all, ultimately where you want to end up, maybe 5 to 7 years down the line, simply because if you don't know where you're going, it's difficult to get directions to go there. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two, you kind of want to then sort of get outside of yourself. and you want to kind of look outside into the world and see what's going on in the world, see what's important in the world right now. Think about globally maybe what's happening as well. What's happening with technology? What new tools are going to be available, 5 or 6, 7 years from now? What are some of the needs of the marketplace? In terms of how music is bought and sold, what are some of the new ways that music is going to be bought and sold? The whole idea is sort of the philosophy of Wayne Gretzky, which is the key to his success is not skating where the puck is, it's skating where the puck is going.
Yes.
So you want to be innovators. You want to be unique. You want to be ahead of the pack. You don't want to always be following what's hip now, because by the time you get good at what's good now, it's already going to be dated, So just kind of think about that. And then 3, you just want to think about your customers, and you really want to think about who you're serving, because the better you know who you're serving, the better you can serve them. Then, of course, 4, you want to look at your competitors, and you want to see essentially who else is out there that potentially could take attention away from you so that you can differentiate yourself and specifically try to find something that's called a competitive advantage, something that's going to make you unique and stand out. After that, moving on to step 5, you then want to actually do testing and feedback. Never just go ahead and create in a bubble and just kind of throw stuff out there and then hope it sells. Do some testing, get some feedback from some music business consultants, some producers, and then actually get your room filled with about 30 of your fans and play through your set. See the kind of vibe that see what they think about it. Just get some feedback from them as well. Moving on, then you have to set goals. Now, goals are different from a vision. A vision is where you are now, and where you want to be 7 years from now. And then goals slice that vision up into digestible pieces. So in other words, you might base your goal on a first-year goal. You might just say, where do we want to be in a year? We want to be here in 7 years, but what's the first logical step on the way to our vision? And now, at that point right there, you can go buy the book and figure out the rest.
That's the start, everybody. Now, you're on the road, and now if you want to keep going, if you want to stay on the road, then, yeah, absolutely. Make sure
there you go. And then there's all, right, and then there's all the other stuff that comes along with, branding and product development and pricing and placing and distribution and promotion. There's all kinds of crap. But, you're right. They should go out and grab the book and do some reading for themselves. And seriously, you guys, you got to look at your music career as a business, and the more information you have, the better, and the more you invest in yourself, the greater chance that other people are going to want to invest in you too, simply because people look at the ambition of others and say, man, these guys are hungry, these guys are busting their ass, these guys are really trying to do something, and I found that usually that's when people want to help you. Not when you're just kind of sitting around waiting for a handout. People really like to see people that are proactive and out there doing their thing.
Yes, you need to prove you can do the work.
That's right.
Now, it's funny, one of the things you used to impart to us, and I'm sure is a continuous stream up to and including the book, was one of the things people are afraid to do, especially bands, because everybody thinks, more often than not, I'd say, they think what they're doing is new. And nobody wants to classify themselves. But the reality is, and you would always put it in these terms, the world is not your audience. But a lot of people resist actually classifying like what they are. Well, we're alternative rap metal with a heavy folk influence. Like, nobody wants to really just say, okay, you need to you have to put yourself in a little bit of a box. You don't need to be confined and uncomfortable in it, but you need to figure out what you are, because how are you going to explain it to other people if they don't, in a way that they'll understand?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. Essentially, I use a metaphor. I use a cooking metaphor. And, and the kind of the way I look at it is suppose that, we were having a party, and the party consisted of, different people. Let's just categorize them into 2 categories, meat eaters and non-meat eaters, right? And we're trying to cook one meal that's going to appeal to both non-meat eaters and meat eaters. Essentially what's going to happen is we're going to create something that neither the meat eater or the non-meat eater is going to be horribly excited about, right?
Yeah.
So the process of segmentation is saying, okay, look, our audience potentially could be composed of meat eaters and non-meat eaters, but let's separate them into two categories and ask ourselves, which one is the biggest audience? Which one do we care about first? Which one is our most likely audience? And should we decide that, hey, our audience is composed more of meat eaters, then let's bake, the lasagna meat double, triple heart attack sausage lasagna and make them really effing happy. Otherwise, if we try to water down a one-size-fits-all marketing strategy or philosophy to kind of appeal to everybody, then our message gets a little bit watered down, So segment your most likely audience, and then once you win them over, you could start segmenting, the next likely audience, and so on and so forth, until you do own the world. It's very, very important to start in that process of segmentation.
And branding, too, which is something, it's a well-worn term, and people are kind of tired of hearing it, but the world is made up of brands. Everybody recognizes Coca-Cola and Oprah and all sorts of different, just the whole spectrum of brands. So the term branding kind of has, I think, maybe a slight bit of stink to it when it comes to certain people, especially the artist types. But it's essential because you have to put yourself out there. You have to show people what you stand for.
That's true. And I want to point out to people, too, that, a brand lives in the mind of the customer. So in other words, or in our case, the mind of the fan. So you don't actually create a brand. What you do is you put out a brand identity. You put out messages. And then people will perceive those messages, if done correctly, in the way that you want them to perceive you as an actor, as a band, or as a business. So in other words, if you send out no message, or you send out confusing messages, or you send out, 1 minute you're acting this way, and then the next minute you're acting this way, and the next minute you're looking this way, no one really quite knows what to make of you. So let's just take Subway Sandwich Shop for a minute, okay? Suppose that sometimes we show up and it's open. Sometimes we show up and it's closed. Sometimes we show up and everything really is fresh. Sometimes we show up and they don't have, any bread at all. Sometimes we show up and it's $5. Sometimes we show up and it's $9. Essentially, it's not providing us any opportunity to really grasp who they are. So, in essence, we just might move on to the next thing. There's nothing to hold on to. So a brand is a promise. It's something that people come to expect, and it's something that people attach themselves to because they know essentially what it is that they're going to get. That's why we go to Starbucks. That's why we go to see a Kiss concert. That's why we go to Coachella, because we know what we're going to get. So, just think about what, how you want your audience to perceive you, and just make sure to send out consistent, believable messages so that they form a really strong positive image in their mind about you.
It's funny, too, that you mentioned one of the steps in the book. One of the strategies is to learn from your competition. And there seem to be two schools of thought when it comes to competition. One says the way to destroy the competition is to not believe in competition and to basically ignore it. And you seem to be of the other school where it's, no, observe and learn from the competition and see what works and what doesn't work.
Well, again, if we're, it depends. Let's go with the first philosophy first. The first philosophy is let's not pay attention to anything out there in the world because we don't want our artistic space to be infected. So we sit in a cabin somewhere and we remove ourselves from the planet Earth and we just kind of write and we're into our own head and we don't want to listen to anything because we don't want to pollute our thoughts. And hopefully you create music that's really special and really unique and really different. Now, on the other hand, you can actually really take a look at what's going out there, figuring out what people are doing really well and making sure to do some of that, and then thinking about what people aren't doing at all and where you might be able to gain a little bit of a competitive edge or a little bit of a uniqueness so that when people see you, you automatically stand out as being something interesting and fresh. Now, keep in mind, being different for the sake of being different is not what we're talking about. It has to be something that's relevant to your audience, something they care about, something that's interesting, something that's special. So I think paying attention and really kind of seeing what's around you is very smart. If I might make a football metaphor real quick.
Please do.
Think
it's
about
timely.
the Super Bowl. Yeah, think about the Super Bowl, right? Don't you think that those teams study each other, study films, study whether or not they go to on fourth down, whether or not they, on average, go to the air or go to the running,
right,
or they know everything about the football players. They sit in locker rooms and study films. Do you think that they just go, oh, let's never study anything, let's just live in our bubble, let's just do what we do, we'll get on the field and just play? No, they know exactly what their strengths and weaknesses are, and they know how to exploit their strengths and weaknesses. So that's kind of the concept here in the music business. Now, just listening to ourselves talk, I can see what your listeners might be thinking right now. God, this is just a whole lot of thinking and a whole lot of thought, and I just want to rock. I just want to sit in my room and rock. So again, keep in mind that, we're not suggesting that you take away that spirit, just like turning your amp on 11, and hitting the power chords and just kind of, creating. You definitely want to continue doing that, but you just want to kind of pay a little bit more attention, Be open-minded to some different strategies. These things that I'm talking about, I did not invent. These are not Bobby Borg philosophies on marketing. These are tried and tested marketing tools that have been used by the most successful, innovative companies for decades and are still continued to be used today and will be for the next 30 or 40 years as well. The tools might change a little bit, but the concepts and the philosophies and psychology behind it all will remain, consistent. So, do what you do, but open your mind to some new ideas as well. This way you have different strategies to play with, different things that you can use in your toolkit that can help you get where you want to get ultimately.
Definitely, because you can be smart about it. You don't need to go into it, especially now. There's such, and that's why it's great to have a book like this that is so straightforward, because especially now with the internet, there's an ocean of noise everybody needs to wade through, and everybody has their 2 cents, and they're able to put it out there mostly anonymously, and there's no clear-cut way other than just scouring for interviews of people who you look up to maybe see what they did, but there doesn't seem to be very many clear-cut ways of giving you a strategy, of giving you a plan, and that's something you're dead set on. And that was, like I said, the impetus for the book was to inform musicians and to make sure that your experiences ended up benefiting others and that you were able to pass on it out. You're saving people years of heartache and difficulty by putting this information in a book, because it'd be very easy for them to make the same mistakes and end up on a subway floor licking envelopes. But they don't have to.
Definitely. It's really, really important. The bottom line is, I went through, I enjoy playing music. I played music ever since I was 6 years old, and I practiced, 18 hours a day at points. I was a nutcase, and I did that for literally, decades, then went to Berklee College of Music in Boston and, won scholarships there, and then went out and was a studio musician playing around in Boston and making a good living. And then by the time I was 24, I was got signed to major labels, and then, played stadiums and was on MTV and all kinds of crazy stuff. And, I just kind of go, wow, it's cool. I worked my ass off, but, there's a lot of stuff out there that musicians, need to know and don't know. I just kind of got really passionate about sort of, figuring this all out and spitting it back to people in a way that's going to make sense for them. So maybe the path to their success, can maybe be less bumpy with less obstacles. And there's a certain fulfillment that makes me feel as though maybe some of the little trials and tribulations that I went through are not in vain.
Yes.
So, it brings a lot of meaning to me, as well. So,
yeah. And
you're right.
It's funny that you mentioned as far as locking yourself away in a bubble, which I think as artists, musicians, we do. We want to just go away and say, oh, this is great and we love it. And I think some of that translates over, that kind of isolation or a lack of engagement, I think that translates also into how bands, how artists won't necessarily engage with their audience. And so they're not getting any feedback unless they show up to play the gig and there's two people and they're both sitting at the bar not paying attention to the show. But that engagement is also very essential. Some shy away from it, but you really have to embrace. I mean, perfect example of engagement and keeping your fan base excited. The person I've been calling back to, especially these last few months, Taylor Swift, who's basically carrying the music industry right now, in that aside from sending out boxes, specifically put together boxes for fans that, there's all these videos of people opening up boxes from Taylor and being very self-aware of what her audience is listening to by following comments and by posting a lot on Tumblr. And even by putting out CDs, I mean, a lot of people say, I can't believe you like Taylor Swift. Well, I do like Taylor Swift's music, but whether people like it or not, she is keeping the CD format alive because she's putting out a physical product that people want to pay money for. And she's listening to what fans want. So this new CD came with a little packet of Polaroids that looked like Polaroids circa 1989. And, the booklet's worth, it's not just, a little fold out of her in a dress leaning up against a tree. And it's like, I paid $15 for this. No, she's putting something out there that people want to pay for. And she's engaging with her audience. As huge as she isn't above that engagement and staying involved with people. And a lot of that contributes to success. And I think that it's something more, let's say, artists who are more, keep things more insular are against. But it's important regardless of what level you're at.
No, it is. I mean, listen, being a musician is, you're kind of wearing your heart on your sleeve. And, and people are reaching deep down in their souls and they're trying to convey certain thoughts. And I think there might be potentially a fear of, rejection, maybe a fear of maybe someone saying, I don't like that, or, maybe there's a fear of, there's a vulnerability.
Yes.
So oftentimes with that vulnerability becomes, there's a little bit of a, I don't care if people like it. And, maybe that's a little bit of denial. I don't know, or maybe they feel because it's so sensitive, to getting on a mic and saying, hey, don't forget to go over to our merch table and buy our CD, just seems a little like pushed or cheesy to them or something, or hanging out with fans afterwards and shaking their hand and asking for an email address might feel uncomfortable for them, again, because they're wearing their heart on their sleeve, so to speak. I kind of understand that. And then for others, they're really great at it. They're great at hanging out with fans and sending packages and sending photos and really kind of trying to get that one-on-one engagement. So, here's the reality, though, you guys. No one's going to come and save you but yourself, So you really kind of have to take charge of your career, roll up your sleeves, and make it happen. I mean, it's a proven fact that unless you're just one of those artists that gets lucky and puts out a video and it goes viral, and then you put out another one and it goes viral, and, you're young enough and cute enough that some producer decides to, sign you and work with you and make a record, you're going to have to work for this. You're going to have to use the tools out there. You're going to have to keep on doing this. And you're going to really, really, you have to really, really act as though, you're more than a weekend warrior. Are you a lifer, or you just came out to Hollywood for a year to see if you're going to make it? We need to be lifers, man. We need to be troopers. We need to be in this fight for a long time, or potentially you're not going to win.
Yeah, you need to have...
I will tell you, man.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and I will tell you, just on a closing thought, to this little rant, is that I have noticed that the people that stay in the game are the people that succeed. I mean, literally, I can tell you, friends of mine I went to Berkeley with, that you just haven't heard anything from them for years and years, and they're just playing, little Holiday Inn gigs and stuff like that, and they just keep on playing and believing, and they make it their life. They're the real thing. It's their job. They're surviving. They're teaching. They're doing whatever to do. And then all of a sudden, bam, they get an audition. Next thing you know, they're the bass player or the drummer in a huge band,
Right.
I'm like, holy crap, man. Good for you, dude. It took you 14 years. But you know what? Most people would bail and go back to law school after 2 years,
Yeah.
So you got to be for real, man. I mean, do you want to do this, or is this a little 3-year like, let's see if I can make it and be a star, and then go back home and work at my dad's company? I mean, you have to kind of, I mean, this is a tough business, and it might take a while for you to get where you want to go.
Yeah, and it's there's the whole thing comes down to ultimately you have to have a motor, and it's funny how even now there's still these myths like Madonna was heard singing on a stoop somewhere, and she was someone signed her and she became Madonna. No, the thing that made Madonna was the fact that she kept pushing and she kept worked her ass off, and is still 30 years later still doing it. It doesn't the same thing that takes you from. I mean, like the example is let's take someone. I'm thinking let's go local. Let's say Van Halen. You don't go from a garage in Pasadena to one of the biggest bands in the world unless you're driven to do it. It's not just like, they had a front man who can jump really high and do splits, and man, they had that guitar player. I guarantee there are tons of amazing guitar players who we never heard of because they just didn't push. They didn't delay their gratification, or they weren't lifers. They were just happy to do what it is they were doing, and then woke up one day and it just wasn't working anymore. So I do think there's this, I've won the lottery kind of myth where people just luck into these long careers. But the example, like I said, with, say, Madonna, it's that same motor that gets her signed in the first place takes her to being a household name in a matter of years, and then is able to sustain that over decades. So, yeah, you have to have a motor, and you have to make sure you're doing it. It's, I don't remember, you may actually know who the quote was. It's, now I'm going to botch it because I'm trying to call back to it. But it's, success is not, I think success is not for sale. It's a lease, and rent is due every day. Some version of that. I'm messing it up, and I can't think of who specifically said it. But the idea is there. You need to continue to work it, no matter what it is, because you can go in the opposite direction.
It's funny. You're right, man. It's funny though. I'm anticipating some of your listeners out there right now going, shut up, and just give me the number of where I can go in and get the better gig.
Come on, somebody at Atlantic Records.
Yeah, exactly. And I understand, man. Again, I totally understand. You know why? Because I was there. Again, I'm a musician first and foremost, in the trenches, sleeping on the couches, sleeping in the warehouses, showering in the lakes. It's just like, listen, all this sounds like just a bunch of cheerleading, go, 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 go. And it could even piss people off because they're sitting there going, yeah, whatever, I just want to, do this. But you know what? This is what it is, man. I mean, it's like, it's all up to you. It really is. And as soon as I started believing that, and I just said, you know what, man, if I want this, then I just have to get it.
Totally.
And I am just going to roll up my sleeves, and I'm going to get it, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do. And as soon as I stopped sort of expecting someone to come save me, and I just thought about this logically, how am I going to save myself? Eventually what happens is people go, wow, look at that person really, really trying to do this. And then that energy is infectious, and people start to come aboard, So it's kind of like if we were on an island and we're just all sitting around waiting for the big ship to come save us. And then all of a sudden we realize, look, we could be sitting here forever. We got to do something, essentially that's what we're talking about here. So, it's use the tools that are available and be smart, be strategic, and get out there and do it. Make sure to partner up with the right people. Negativity is a disease. Laziness is a disease. Try to find the right band members that are all going to have as much passion and all going to have a work ethic as you do. Sometimes that's really, really difficult to find, but, I can see that a lot of bands in Hollywood and surrounding areas and, around the nation really are, they're the fault of their own failure. It's a faulty business from the start, and it's going to all fall apart. The band members hate each other. One guy does all the work and resents the fact that the other guys don't do any work. You got to run it like a company. It's like a building with 4 different departments, and is everybody pulling their weight? If you don't have that, you have nothing. if you don't have solid songs, you have nothing. You know, these are the core building blocks that you really need to develop. Otherwise, really, you don't have anything.
I have to say, if anybody who's listening is overwhelmed or is maybe looking at the book and saying, like, 300 pages, how am I going to get through that? Bobby writes, I believe it's weekly, articles on sonicbids.com, which I highly recommend. So if you're looking for tidbits of advice, is that correct? Is it weekly for Sonic Bids?
Well, it's yes. I mean, I'd say yes, just overall. I mean, it's going to be bi-weekly eventually. I mean, bi-monthly, because it's simply it's very time-consuming. But I don't just write for, the articles are showing up on Billboard.com. They're showing up on HypeBots.com. They're showing up on Music Think Tank, on CD Baby's DIY site.
I saw that. I got that in an email.
Showing up on mine. Yeah, they're all over the place. Of course, these are little, it's like an appetizer at a restaurant. You get a little bit of a taste, and and then you got to get the meal. So it's kind of meant to whet your appetite, of course.
Yes, get something.
Get a little bit of information.
Yeah, read a digestible tidbit if you feel, or listen to this. Hey, everybody, it's part of what makes 2015 great. You can listen to this multiple times and really absorb what Bobby's saying. If it sounds intimidating, then keep this thing on your iPod and listen to it back a few times and really take in the message if you aren't ready to commit to the book. But you absolutely should. And BobbyBorg.com is where you want to go, as well as following him on the various social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter. Bobby Borg Consulting is the Instagram handle. And anything else you want to plug, Bobby? Aside from the book, of course, which you get BobbyBorg.com and Amazon?
Well, ultimately, to keep on listening to Chris's show.
Right? See, that's the message.
You, man. Yeah, listen, it's good. It's good. You are, a great, show and vehicle where these guys can actually gain, a lot of knowledge through your podcast. And, and people like you are out there trying to educate other musicians, which is a beautiful thing, So let's do a shout out to Chris, and let's keep on listening to Chris's podcast, certainly if people are interested, I teach courses at UCLA. So for those of you guys that are local, you can come onto campus in the spring. I teach music publishing, and I also teach DIY music marketing. And I also teach online as well. So you can, anywhere around the world, you can jump online and you can take some classes as well. Just that might be an interesting thing for your readers to do as well. What else?
Beautiful. Well, BobbyBorg.com. Once again, go there. You can get all relevant links, links to the book as well. Music Marketing for the DIY musician, creating and executing a plan of attack on a low budget. Get it and read it. It's not going to come to you through osmosis, folks. You're not going to absorb the information by buying the book and then keeping it on your desk under a pile of mail. Okay, buy the book, read, take your time with it like I'm doing. I admittedly didn't finish the book because there's a lot to absorb. And you know what? I'm going to be taking my time to go through it because, hey, this show is do it yourself. And like I said at the top of the show, I want to know what Bobby Borg knows. Bobby, thank you very much for calling in. Do appreciate your time and everything that you do. And thank you for, once again, putting all this information out there in a straight talk way that everybody can absorb.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Definitely. And, I want to let your readers know, as part of this show, if you go to www.bobbyborg.com and you go to the store, you can grab the book, and you can grab a DVD that comes along with it as well, plus an audio CD. So you kind of get a nice little package that gets sent out to you. And, just overall, you guys, just be smart about what you do, kind of think about what you do, because every day, every year is incredibly important. And you want to take good use, because things get a little bit more complicated in your life as you get older.
Yeah, they do.
In terms of responsibilities. So you really got to capitalize on your window of opportunity when there's less distractions in your life. It doesn't get any easier. So
no.
Keep on going, rock on, be smart. And thanks so much, man.
You got it, Bobby. Thanks again for calling in.
Okay, brother.
All right, take care. Talk to you soon. All right, everybody. You've heard it straight from the horse's mouth, let's say, straight from experience, from the trenches. Again, it all starts at BobbyBorg.com. Go there and Pick up the book. Look at the tools he has to offer. They're all there. And don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes. Give the show 5 stars. And make sure that you're tuning in every week live at 10 at skidrowstudios.com. And catch up on the show during the week. Of course, chrisabalo.com. You can follow me on Twitter at chrisabalo and on Instagram at chrissellsout. And we're going out a song from a song Bobby played on ages ago from the band Beggars and Thieves. The song Beggars and Thieves. If you go to YouTube, you can even see Bobby playing drums and chatting on a payphone. For you people under 25, a payphone was an amazing invention where you can put a quarter in and talk to people on the phone. You don't have to carry a phone in your pocket. It's pretty incredible. Anyway, that's it for this week. Please tune in next week and subscribe. And thank you for listening. So until next time, for Bobby Borg, this is Chris Abalo, and this was yet another experiment.
Given the history of Spinal Tap drummers in the past, do you have any fears for your life?